Coming to you from the HagmannReport.com studio, located in the Keystone State, birthplace of a mighty nation, it's your host, Doug Hagmann.
And welcome to Hagmann. It's the Hagmann Report, where truth can't be silenced, truth won't be silenced. Websites to the truth, HagmannReportLive.com, HagmannReportLive.com, where, by the way, I'll say this, last night's show is one of the most listened to shows, although you would not be able to tell that the metrics on YouTube, but the back-end servers on Hagmann Report Live do tell a story, and a different story than that of YouTube. But last night's show, the first hour as well as the second hour went gangbusters as well as the first. So the first dedicated to the really what's going on with respect to the deep state coup. HagmannReport.com as well. If you go to HagmannReport.com, you're going to see two new videos on there, both from Fox, one from Tucker Carlson, one from Sean Hannity. Tucker Carlson does a great job. This was on my mind yesterday, and for some reason I did not roll this out, but that's when Schumer was on Unscripted on MSNBC, talking about the intelligence community and their reach into the reach against their enemies. It's really a telling 8 minutes, and then there's a longer segment by Hannity. The reason I put Hannity up there is because the timeline, there's an important timeline that he goes through. With respect to Biden, Joseph Biden, Hunter Biden, it's important for people to really get the timeline, to understand that timeline. So I want to thank you for joining me. By the way, Patreon meeting this Sunday. Okay, that's Patreon meeting this Sunday, 7 o'clock p.m. I just would urge everyone that's a Patreon member to join me. I like it when you come on. I like the frank discussion. And then again, 7 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday. And that's for the Patreon members. You'll be notified by email with a link to connect. So thank you for your support. And by the way, two things. If you haven't done so, please click the subscribe button on YouTube. The reason I say that is because, it really doesn't matter in the longer run, because YouTube is just kind of a ghost channel of what we do, but it does affect some certain things that we like to see positively impact. So if you want to help us out, just click the subscribe button. And hey, if you feel led to, look, we're a listener-supported, viewer-supported show, so please support us. Now, the deep state is fighting back in many, many, many areas. Let me explain this very briefly. The intent of the enemies of Christianity, of conservatism, can I say that again? Conservatism, of moral integrity, the enemies of the Second Amendment, the enemies of the Constitution, the enemies of the truth. They're out in full force and much different. Their tactics are much different than you would think against platforms like the ones hosted by yours truly. The attacks they're asymmetrical. They're designed to make platforms like this toxic. So toxic that, people they don't want to come on because, that's, it's Conspiracy Central, or, insert reason here. That's one of the ways that we are being attacked. Lawfare another way, constantly being hacked, or the attempted hacks. And I'm going to stop right there, because if you noticed over the past number of weeks, Deyo has been absent from this program. Well, you might say, why is that? Doesn't he? He don't like you no more. Maybe that's the case, but that's not why it hasn't been on. He has been under a sustained and vicious attack. If you like Stan's work, and I know everyone out there that watches the show does and believes in Stan Deyo and Holly Deyo and what the services they provide, let me ask you to stand by them and support them. In an unusual time and day, coming out right now, Stan Deyo from standeyo.com, and he's with me on a Friday. And by the way, I'll be speaking tomorrow in Akron, Canton, at the International Satanic Ritual Abuse Conference hosted by Russ Dizdar. Can't get out there today, or could not get out there earlier today and today. But tomorrow I'll be speaking there, and live stream is available, and video on demand will be available. So just go to controlledminds.com. That's controlledminds.com, and sign up for that. But anyway, without any further delay, let's bring on Stan Deyo. Stan, if you want to be on video, you have to click the microphone button, because through all your resets and everything, it got unclicked. So,
can you see me?
No, I can't see you, or not the microphone, the video button.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Yeah.
I
We
think
can
I may have a. Okay, well, look, you can hear me, right?
We can hear you, yes. And folks, talk amongst yourselves while Stan and I get this worked out.
Sorry.
No worries, man.
I've got a loose connection on the video camera.
Okay, all right. Well,
So give me a second here.
Sure. No worries. As you...
Yeah, go ahead.
No,
yeah,
I'll tell you what, whatever you just did right there, your audio is much clearer. I can tell you that much.
Okay.
We got the audio.
Oh, that's an idea.
Wow, that's a really good audio signal. It sounds like you're sitting right next to me.
Right. Okay. I'm just trying to figure out. Oh, gosh. Have you got video yet?
No, sir.
Okay, you should. Let me see.
What's that?
And 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
There we go. There we go. And
sorry about that.
It's kind of funny. As soon as I mentioned you, well, my system crashed here, so I'm not going to be able to follow along with you on my computer with respect to whatever images you show, but I will follow along on the screen. It's very interesting. I mentioned about you being under attack viciously through the systems and such. Well, mine just went down. First time that's happened ever. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty interesting.
Nice.
You're spreading around the misery. I'm kidding, of course, but
yeah.
I'm glad you're here.
Okay, well, I guess we need to talk about why we've been absent. What happened?
Your video just wigged out. Okay.
Oh,
winked out there.
All right, hold on.
Yep. Okay. No worries.
I know where it's happening, so I'll pull this up over here and see if I can get it back.
While you're doing that, folks, EMP Shield, my EMP Shield, folks, let me tell you something. In my view anyway, anyone who is interested in protecting your equipment from an EMP, whether it's a sun or a man-made EMP, go to myempshield.com. In fact, it's going to be in the program description box on Hagman Report Live. I just want to say that this is, to me, one of the most ingenious products and necessary products out there. It's the brain trust of Stan and his company, Stan Deyo and his company. EMP Shield is the future of EMP protection technology. Again, the link to purchase will be in the program description box. Make sure you use Hagman, Hagmann, as the coupon code. And there it is. So how are we doing?
Okay, now the sound should be better now. I've got that solved.
Sounds good. Sounds great.
Okay.
And we're no worries.
All right. Yeah.
Oh, we got a little circle there where that's the Skype icon. Thank you. Now, there you go.
Now, don't anybody move or breathe heavy. Okay. Yeah. Look, the last 4 weeks, at least, I've been absent from the show, as you know, because of the malware attack that hit us. It took us a while to even get Holly's computer back up. It wiped out half our computers and our main applications we use to get to the internet and perform updates to the website, that kind of stuff. And I'm still, fighting to get my system back up, which is to the right of me here. This is a intermediate fix here with a laptop. We're getting over 200 hits a day, close to 300 now, from China trying to hit us with malware. There's one offshore of Nigeria as well, a couple in Washington, D.C., and one in San Francisco. I'm just looking at the hit map now as we speak to see what's giving us grief. We've blocked most of the bad ones, and the secondary blacklist will get the rest. Anyway, it's so disrupted our system. I thought I had lost about 0.9 of a terabyte of my historical data on everything, in life. And fortunately, I'd managed to save that on a backup disk just before it went down. And that was yesterday's effort. It took about 8 hours for that stuff to transfer. And I don't know who the kind person was that first did it, but anyway, we have recovered and are still recovering. Yeah. So many things have happened during that time. It's incredible. I've gone through the gamut of going up to Colorado Springs. It's an hour drive each way, about 100 miles round trip. So much so that my car thinks it lives there at the moment. And it was such a bad hit to our system, to both systems, that the Apple repair place has been pulling out its hair. I've been up there with them. It's the worst attack they've ever seen, and it still hit some of our keychain system preferences on Holly's computer. So I've got to take hers back up after the show today.
That's not good. No, that's not good.
Look, that prevents her from getting to her backup machine. So, yeah, it's not good.
Man, I'll tell you what, and that's why we store a lot of, we have entire backup offline. And we found that if we didn't do that, we would probably be dead in the water in terms of, what we've got in terms of the intellectual property and the show content. So I know how it is. But see, it's a constant battle now. And it's a new, is this at a different level, Stan? I mean.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's stepped up hugely. And we've been getting emails from your viewers and stuff. And some of them have been saying, look, don't feel, alone, because we're getting hits, not to our computer so much, but to life. Like the devil is really striking out at Christians all across the world. Obviously, he's been doing it in the Middle East, where Christians have been killed for their faith. But in the United States now, that we're seeing that the effort is intensified. Look, right in the middle of all this stuff, about 2 weeks ago, our easy chairs that we sometimes get to sit in over the last 4 weeks collapsed. Old age. So we had to replace 2 easy chairs at X dollars, and the waste of time to get that all set up. And other people are saying that they've got financial hits. Us too. But, the hits are just increasing. And you and I have talked about this offline. It's certainly a widespread increase in the persecution of the Christian church, which makes me wonder, and you as well, are we close to seeing the Lord's return or coming for his church or something? I'm not putting, pre or mid-trib, but I'm just saying that the things are so intense. And the things in the Middle East are so complicated, and intense. I can't see us waiting much longer for the tribulation to start.
I agree. And, our folks, I got to tell you, Stan is as gracious offline as he is online or, on air. And I've got to tell you, to hear the stuff that they've gone through, please keep them in your prayers. And he's not asking me to, say this or, I'm not trying to maximize this or be hyperbolic on this, but what Stan said is so true. I've been talking with people who have been going through crises, plural, like no other time in their lives. And to me, the greater, the more of I don't want to say that. You can translate this for me. The more of a Christian you are, or the greater you're following of the biblical, the God of the Bible, the worse the attacks are, and it seems like the more annoyances. People will laugh. I'm sure they're going to laugh. Well, the two easy chairs, ha ha. Tell me God what, or the devil's coming at your easy chairs. Well, you know what? It's the collective annoyances. It's the collective nuisances. It's the collective problems, in my view, anyway. The spirit's working against everything that's good. That it wears you down. It wears us down. And it's just not the easy chair. It's just not the computer. It's just not the car. It's just not the bank account. It's everything. That's my my 2 cents.
Well, and several people have said, health or death in the families have occurred in the last month and a half. And, you and I talked offline the other day about how things seem to be increasing, the speed of the passing of a day, for instance, and the more attacks during a day. It's like if this time weren't shortened, and it's like the quickening that Art Bell used to talk about, the quickening of the persecution. It's just, now then I see Friday. Oh, well, it was just Friday. Oh, it's Friday again. Oh, okay. The time just whizzes by as all these things are happening. I suppose that, the doctors would say for memory recall and stuff, that's good because it keeps your mind busy. I'm thinking, okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, that's one way.
Yeah. So, hey, the other day, probably 3 or 4 days ago, I had an interesting dream. I don't know that I would call it a dream vision. Could have been, but it was an interesting thing on what's biblical this time. I started the dream standing at a table in a room next to Jesus and the 12 disciples after he had arisen. And he had on the table in front of them like about a 12-inch, looked like a thin crust pizza crust. And he took one of those pizza cutters and cut it into 12 equal pieces. And then he placed an apple on each piece and an olive. And then he said to them, take your piece and now go forth into the world and make straight the pathway of God. And I thought, straight the pathway of God. In Hebrew, that's Israel. So, all right. So I followed with one of the apostles as he started his journey, and each of them left the room, and I could feel through the one I was with, in the pit of my stomach, there was like an invisible, like rope or guide to guide me along my path. The apostle actually along his path. Through time and location on the earth, witnessing as he went along. And I showed him moving through time. He went through some wars and battles, and he was right there in the middle of it all. And nothing touched him because he wasn't visible to them. He was traveling, in that manner. And if he tried to move left or right of the course that Jesus had picked for him, you would feel this tug left or right in the pit of your stomach, this invisible thing. So, you're off track. Come on back in. And knowing the apostles, I think that they probably would have tended to stray here and there or be distracted. And so the good Lord put that in there just to be sure they kept on track. As time passed, the apostle I was with, he could climb mountains, go through walls, everything as he moved with this incredible thing. And I saw him in the last part of getting close to the time when all of the apostles would meet at the same place on the earth after all their travels. And there was a big tent, and there was food and music, and it was the party at the end of this time. And I was standing next to several of them now who had met at the meeting place, and I looked outside the tent, and it was like a window outside, but it was a window that was open, and it was somewhere in Russia with some Russian troops, and they were standing around. And the apostle said to him, hey, come on in here. We're about to finish up now. It's okay. Stop fighting. Come on in here. And then I woke up. Well, now I thought, what does this mean? An apple and an olive on their share. Each of them got it. An apple from the time of Adam and Eve to the olive, maybe the olive garden at the time that Christ made his decision to give up his life on the cross. Because he did discuss this with God. There in the garden that night, and trying to, say, don't take me away now. Let me finish my work here. And so he finally accepted the decision there in the Olive Garden, and that finished the cycle from the Garden of Eden to there to where mankind would be cleansed by his blood on the cross, I guess. Anyway, it's such a weird dream. I thought I'd share it with you. I don't know all the other parts to it, like what they mean, but yeah, it was interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, I think we're getting close to something.
Yeah, I would defer to you on things like that, and that to me sounds pretty vivid and specific. So your interpretation, that's pretty interesting.
Well, it's interesting to note there was no pepperoni for heartburn on them, so it's just an apple and an olive. But yeah, so I guess be encouraged. I think it was a message to me to say that things are finally coming to an end, and I was encouraged or puzzled in some respect by the fact that these apostles not only traveled across the earth, but across time, bit by bit, seeing all kinds of people. It wasn't just them going out to witness while they were here on earth, and limited by foot or by ship or whatever. They had absolute mobility in time and space. So I was, for scientists, I thought, wow, that's really cool. How do you do that? Anyway, enough on dream.
Well, thank you for sharing that. It's, I'm sure it's going to strike a chord with someone out there, or perhaps more than probably someone. So thank you very much for sharing that. Appreciate it.
Oh, you mentioned, yeah, sure. You mentioned to your Patreon listeners that you were having a gathering. I need to talk to my Patreon supporters. Most of them are your listeners, and tell them that finally, I think this weekend, I will catch up on all the editing for the next video on the Garden of Eden, and I'll be posting it on the Patreon channel. That's it. Yeah, thank you. Every time I thought I was caught up and ready to go, something else broke or wasn't working, and I had to fix that on the system. So it's not being slack. I just have been swamped with crises.
Yeah, exactly. And very, very well, folks. Stan Deyo will be having an update with the Patreon members, as he said, and it's not because of a lack of desire; it's because it's a duck or bleed situation with Stan. So, wow. Well, good.
And I want to thank all those members there, my Patreon channel, that have been writing and supporting us in prayer and other ways as well. Thank you for that. So
it's really neat. I look at the people who support us by way of Patreon. I mean, it's really neat to have people that care enough, and I'm really honored and really humbled by the support that we receive, as I know you are too. So these people are important to us, and they're the reason that we're able to continue, in part anyway, with what we're doing. So, in large part.
Yeah, boy. Oh, hey. In the midst of all this political posturing in the Congress, and he did that, no, I didn't, and that kind of stuff, I ran across something here, and you won't see this, but image 45. I just show a picture of the Earth. It's about climate change, and the text under it says, in a carefully worded retraction, the scientific journal Nature admitted that inaccurate and inflated figures were given in its published Princeton study, one that alarmed readers that oceans were heating up so quickly and intensely that cataclysmic climate change was impending. And, all you guys out there, the Okashas, the squad, we're not going to die in 10 years. Your data is totally incorrect. And the publications to the contrary about global warming going to kill us in 10 years, it's rubbish. And Princeton and Nature are both respected institutions, but somehow or another, somebody released bad data to fire the flame, to get people to stop using their cars, stop eating meat, craziness.
Eating babies, if you were to believe the videos that you see. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's crazy. This hysteria behind what we're seeing, the climate change. I can barely get the words out of my mouth when I say that phrase. But Stan, you talk about how the Earth and how all climate is changing, so I mean there is change, but not the way not the way that they're telling it.
That's right. That's right.
So
let's look, I still point to the sun. If you look back in the geological records of ice ages and hot ages, heated ages, you'll see that long before humans even walked the earth, we had drastic changes in the climate, overheating, or underheating, cooling, ice ages and hot places. And it wasn't due to the number of dinosaurs, or it was more due to the sun and to the nature of water in our atmosphere, whether it was in clouds or whether it was in dew, without high altitude clouds. These things happen without our input and without us, having cattle and having cars and that kind of stuff and industry. And it happened a lot worse than it's happening now. So people really need to calm down, because we are going to have changes. We are having them. But remember, the earth is going to be repaired in the time of the millennial reign of Jesus. He's going to come back at the end of the tribulation period, and he's going to start correcting the chaos that has been created on the planet by man, but under the direction of Satan. There will be a repairing of the physical, geological, material type earth, and of the living things on the earth, so they'll all live in harmony. Remember how it says the lion will lay down with the lamb, and won't make it breakfast or anything? That's fine. That's coming. So understand it. If you're a believer, believe the Bible. It is true. It is absolutely true. And this promise tells us that the earth is not going to disappear, blow up, or whatever in the next 10 years. However, at the end of Revelation of John, it does say that after the 1,000-year reign, that the earth and the heavens will pass away in a great heat as the universe kind of melts down. And then a new earth and a new heaven will replace what we have now. So, we'll all be long gone into the heavens or into judgment by the time that happens. So people just need to calm down. It's don't be Chicken Little running around, the sky is falling. There are things happening, and we're going to deal with it, and the Lord's going to deal with it and help us deal with it as well. It's all part of the plan. So anyway,
and I'm glad you mentioned that. It just seems like the individuals who promote this kind of, the alternative, they've probably, they're probably not Christians. They probably have never picked up a Bible, or if they have, it's not to read it, at least not with the prayerful intent to read it. So, it's to me, it's almost like an artifact of biblical illiteracy that we're seeing.
But, I got an article today. Let me see if I can find it quickly when I'm talking about it. There was a Fox journalist, been with him for 10 years, that said that the Democrats are a godless group, and it was part of his answer to what was happening, and they fired him for that. I thought was kind of unfair, but you can understand why. Here it is. Let me just open that email. Starnes, a guy named Starnes, was kicked off the network for calling them godless Democrats.
Todd Starnes, right?
Todd Starnes, that's right. Yep. So the battle is intensifying. What I see happening here, and it's being mentioned on Fox as well, is that George Soros is probably sitting in his easy chair having a cognac or something, laughing his backside off, because his formula in Europe for overthrowing governments and putting in place, very worldly governments, is to create division in the country, to create dissatisfaction in the populace with their elected leadership, or dictators or whatever, to cause a revolution. And he has horses on both sides of the fence. If the left wins, he's got a man or two up there to take over the leadership. If the right wins, same thing. So the United States is kind of the last big chip to fall, and he's divided us so efficiently that the line, the demarcation between the left and the right in this country, is a line like the Civil War line, that we faced back in the time of Lincoln. Right now, we are so close to an explosion, a spark, causing civil war to occur again. But this time, you won't know your enemy by his dress or anything. It's going to be by religious preference. It's going to be by financial situation. It's going to be by citizen, non-citizen, illegal immigrants. Just if there are going to be so many sides to this that people are going to be at each other for so many various reasons that you won't know who your enemy is. You'll just kind of have to say, whoever you are, don't point that gun at me or I'll shoot back. If you're still, if you're still here.
I've never seen such divisiveness, and as you, I'm sure, remembering Watergate. Maybe that's even a non-issue, but back in 68, 69, the riots and the burning of cities and such, the Weather Underground, the progressive left, but this seems more like a Civil War scenario.
And this,
go ahead.
No, sorry, go on.
Well, I'm just curious. I think we've lost the ability to. You can't have a conversation with a crazy person, in my view. You can't. You cannot sit down if you and I were so had so opposing views that there was that we could not come to any type of an agreement. What's left? But I guess if we're wrestling for control of something, would be to fight. And is that where we're at now? I mean, or are we kind of almost there?
Yeah. Look at how many policemen are being killed, by criminals and stuff now. Then, the death rate is increased remarkably, and it reminds me of I think it was Jeff Foxworthy, one of the comedians on the tube, who said, you just can't fix stupid. And that's where we are. We've got stupids on both sides, but I think, in my opinion, most of them are on the left side. Oh, sorry, who was it? Oh, it was Ron White said it. Okay, thanks, Holly. I mean, I can't do his accent as well as he does his own, but he takes his cigar out of his mouth and he says, you just can't fix stupid. And that's our motto these days. We look at the news and think, good Lord. And we have so many more guns per capita now than we did in the Civil War, and with such killing power, that this Civil War will take America down. I don't think there's not going to be a winner. There really wasn't a winner in the Civil War in the past either, but one side just stopped fighting, and we're there. We're there.
Is that the intent in your view of people of George Soros and people like George Soros? The people that have the both sides covered, and the abusers and fomenters of insurrection. Is that his and his ilk's intent?
Oh yeah. Look, years ago I read the rather spurious document, which wasn't a true document, but it was called "The Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion,"
mm-hmm.
and Hitler used it to foment hate toward the Jewish community and the Jewish bankers in particular. Now, in that book, it laid out a plan, step by step, chapter by chapter, for how to take control of the world. And toward the last part of it, it said, and we will make the people so dissatisfied with their leadership that they will cry out for someone to replace these bad systems. And it says, and we will give them a global dictator who will have 3 men that we will appoint close to him that can kill him at any time should he overreach his powers. But we will have them come together under the leadership of this new one world leader. And they talk about how they get into educational facilities, earlier in the book, and how they corrupt over generations the thinking of the children and the children and the children until they think, the way that they're supposed to in this Fabian type way. So yes, I think Soros is following that playbook, and I don't think he wrote it or anything like that. It was done in Russia, as I say, a spurious document to, it was like brainwashing or conditioning of the people that they were aimed at there in Germany and eventually a lot of other countries. So he's doing it.
Yeah, it's look. I look at today's political environment here in the United States, and I see that ever since Donald Trump really descended that escalator, it was game on, fight on, and it was the intelligence community that hatched domestically everything that we're seeing today. And Schumer came on. It was right after the inauguration, I believe, right after a tweet that Donald Trump sent saying that you're a fool to take on the intelligence community because it's a brotherhood and you're going to wind up with a shiv in your back. I think it was a reference, and or maybe that was Phil Mudd said that, I think, former CIA individual. But the bottom line is, yeah, I mean, the hatred out there for one man in one movement, the Make America Great Again movement, is, man, it's a bad situation. It's a bad formula right now, in my view.
Yeah, it is. And in the Bible, remember, it says that at the end, God will send such a strong delusion that many will fall or fail, lose their salvation because of it. It's like a spell has been cast over not only the American people, but in Australia and other English-speaking countries, and perhaps in all the world. This spell is to follow the non-Christian, non-Jewish, the non-good path in life. And because of this spell, you can talk to these people who are, in this country, say, supporting the left, and they immediately, their eyes glaze over, and they're not listening. They just will not listen to logic. And you and I both know if they were being logical, you could see left and right presentations on the screen and look for facts, and you'd say, whoa, the left side here has no facts. It's all, hearsay and lies. I mean, when they can come out and say stuff that came out of the mouth of the president, which did not, and they are enhancing quotes of what he said on a phone call or something like that. This is madness. It is just lying, and it's a delusion.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because I got a letter I got a letter, picked it up from the P.O. box the other day, or 2 days ago, I guess it is. It's dated 9/28/19, and it's from a David H. out of Wyoming, who said basically to me, why don't you storm the Capitol and start arresting all these so-called deep state operatives, and then if you don't end up in prison, go see a psychiatrist, because Trump is immoral and has a past business history of unscrupulous behavior. Plus, since being president, he's lied to the American people over 12,000 times. To deny this reality is living delusionally. Okay. And it goes on, but okay. 12. Look, people are really taking stands right now, and I think that I don't know. I don't see a good ending to any of this.
Look, I'll admit, Donald Trump is a human, and certainly he has had, he's made some mistakes in his business life, and some of those mistakes might have been, bankrupting one company because he wouldn't pay him, an architectural company. I don't know the details of it, but okay, that might be one of the things that he'd say, well, gee, Lord, I'm sorry about that. I guess I screwed up there. I don't know. And, and he may have chased the ladies as well. I mean, that's probably par for somebody of that caliber that's a fighter. And, okay, fine. But compare him to, let's say Clinton or,
yeah,
they don't make the same comparisons, the same standards when they compare Trump to other presidents, the Clintons, both of them are not in jail, and I don't know why. That's
been the theme, the unequal justice that we're seeing, and boy, justice is very difficult to attain. You've got to work for justice, in my view. You've got to ensure that there is equal justice, and if there's not, things are not going to go well, and things aren't going well. With Hillary, 33,000 emails she deletes and acid washes, and everything that happened. And Stan, think Benghazi. For whatever you think about it, I mean, I don't care. Whatever, just think about Benghazi, where four Americans died. That's become kind of a footnote in all of this other controversy. And now we're looking at, when you compare all of that to the suggestive phone call, hey, by Donald Trump to Ukraine, hey, investigate the corruption, man. I don't know. It just seems like, as you said, the delusion. And I think people are really deluded. And on both sides, seriously, on both sides.
Yeah.
There's some people who believe that Donald Trump is, could qualify to be a minister. I'm sure, and they're wrong. He's a guy,
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah.
No, they're being led by people that are conditioning them, to just be blind and to follow and quote their leadership without facts, without proof. And yeah, as you say, which doesn't matter. Each side has problems with their leadership, but as far as I'm concerned, the only thing keeping us from being overrun with socialist communism is Donald Trump and his effort.
When we were talking off, I didn't mean to cut you short there, but when we were talking privately, you mentioned the book, obviously, The Quickening by Art Bell, and I was lucky enough to get a copy right after he wrote it, and I know you were too. What do you think he would say to what's taking place right now? I mean, what you knew, Art. I mean, I told you so. I see.
Yeah, I don't know. Certainly, it would be some kind of a sarcastic remark, and in his inevitable way. But I miss him actually. Was listening to his show that brought Holly and I together years ago, and we connected through the show.
That's such a neat story, by the way. Yeah, and
yeah.
A greater couple, I don't know any other greater couple than Stan and Holly Deyo, and I mean that in the story of their meeting and such, folks. Let me tell you something. Marriage made in heaven or in the stars. There it is, right there. So,
yeah, we think about that quite frequently these days. It was kind of miraculous that living half a planet away from each other, that we came together and had so many things in common. And it was just, everybody that knew us said that we were absolutely cast in the mold for each other. So each of us has its job to do, or his or her job, gender correct anyway, job to do. This PC stuff, I hear there's an uprising against it finally because it's just so crazy. Bathrooms that are marked "it." What does that mean?
Yeah, there was a time when I was dog butt tired, and I was working a case, and I was like, hour number 30, and I remember being at a restaurant, and I walked into the ladies' room by accident. I'm looking around for the urinals, and thinking, wow. And then I realized, it dawned on me, wait a minute, I'm in the wrong room. And I was absolutely horrified and embarrassed. Today, I guess I would qualify as being, understanding or embracing the movement of the, you are what you feel. And that's toxic, isn't it?
It really is. It's against nature. In fact, when I was going through Charles de Gaulle Airport here in 1983, on the way to the Middle East, it was a bit of a layover, and I really needed to use the head. So I went into the door and closed the stall and did my business. Come out, I heard someone come in, and here's this lady, fixing her hair and stuff up there. And I said, "Oh, sorry, did I get the wrong door?" "Oh, no, it's for both, whatever." And I'm thinking, whoa, I'm not comfortable with this at all. He said as he zipped up his...
And that was in 83, right? You said?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hey, they're forward thinkers over there in Europe, Okay. All right. Yeah. And this gender stuff is just crazy. I don't know. It's you either got the plumbing or you don't, in my view. And if you don't, then you're a girl. And if you do, then you're a guy. The outside plumbing. You get my drift. I don't know.
Look at this. It's a perfect example of Satan's effort to create chaos, disorder. His whole concept is evil. And why is it evil? Because everything that he is doing and planning to do is to create disorder. Order is good, and that is harmony between all things working together as God designed it. When some being comes in and goes against that to try to tear it down and to just, destroy the order of everything, that is chaos, and that's going to cause things to decay and die rapidly. So just look at him as, what would it be, an ice entropy being. Anyway, he's creating havoc. I better get to a couple news items, if you don't mind.
No, and let me just say, I've enjoyed our conversation, and I know people will tell me that they enjoyed this conversation, but you go right ahead, sir.
Okay, I got an email from Bob Sorensen saying, look, I want you to have a look at what's happening in Puerto Rico. Over the last few weeks, they've been having a lot of earthquakes. And on our show images page, which you can't see, of course.
I can now. Eric fixed me up, so I can now.
Oh, okay. Slide 43. Click on the picture, and it'll take you to an image showing the earthquakes, and then showing underneath it what it looked like without the earthquakes, because I want to talk about the geology there. As you can see, about 830 earthquakes over Richter 1. It's like when you break a plexiglass sheet, when you're bending it, and the little microfractures start to form, bunches and bunches of them, like what happened in California, but not quite as bad yet. Little tiny earthquakes start to tell you something's about to pop. And if you look at the bottom picture, which is without the earthquakes, you'll see Puerto Rico's that little island there to the right. And there's a deep gouge in the seafloor there, which links up to the tectonic plate border passing between them. Now, this is an unstable region, and there's a stretching going on left and right in what you're looking at. So for the people of Puerto Rico and to the islands to the west of there, I think that they're going to have maybe a tsunami from a big quake here weeks, months from now, but it is forming. And I think, Bob, what we're seeing there is a precursor of a big one, perhaps two or three big ones, starting at a high value and going down. But anyway, that's I did do research on it, Bob, and that's all I can tell you, because I know that Puerto Rico traditionally, typically has a bunch of small earthquakes, but not quite this many clustered together. So it's an area to watch, and I do think we're going to see significant activity there. I don't know that we'll see anything like a new volcano occurring, but we will see certainly earthquakes and possibly tsunamis in that region when it does happen.
I didn't realize it, and thanks, Bob, for pointing that out, or thank you, Stan, for pointing this out and explaining this. I didn't realize that activity in that area. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I see it on my scans every day, and so I know the feel of it. That it's just been rumbling, for years, but now it seems to be getting serious, as the things are in the West Coast here, particularly in California and up into Oregon. The Cascadia subduction zone is, starting to release stress, and it may release several big earthquakes. Now, look at slide 44 next to that. And this is a rather interesting article here about plate tectonics. The plates run deeper than previously thought. Now, when they say deeper, you can see that photo. In fact, there's several photos in the article itself showing that they're doing like a CAT scan of the Earth using seismological tomography is what it's called, instead of computer-aided tomography. I guess it's computer-aided tomography, but not on a person, but on the whole planet, using the earthquake waves as the sensors. You can see that they're saying, wow, this convection goes a lot deeper than we thought it. We thought it was like just like mantle deep, but their images show it going deeper. And I looked at that and I thought, well, Stanley, you've been talking about the Earth's crust moving independent of the rest of the planet, down into the core. Looking at their diagram, I'd think, well, how could that happen and have subduction zones? But what I finally realized was the last time that we moved the crust of the Earth from that asteroid impact on the east coast of India, it was so huge that it did flip the crust around to where it is now. It used to be upside down to where we are now. Roughly, there was a slight degree difference in that. But when that asteroid hit, it moved 6 million square miles of seabed and some continental pieces over underneath New Guinea, and shoved all that mass up underneath New Guinea to make a rise on the surface of the Earth. They've seen this, and I've talked about it and showed images of it in the past on your show. So that, I think, and the impact shock that occurred underneath the the crust from that impact, because it punched right through the seabed, and it was huge, huge. I mean, we're talking minimum 15 miles in diameter, and the effect in the core as it started to expand and the backwash from all this created these subduction zones along the various pieces of what do you call it, Pangea, where all the continents were together. That occurred at that time. I was talking to a guy the other day about this, the validity of Genesis in the Bible, and he says, "Oh, you're one of those apologists." I said, "Yeah, I am, because I've proven the facts mentioned in Genesis about, say, like the flood, are absolutely correct." I said, "You can see the evidence of the backwash of that asteroid on Saudi Arabia. It was 2 miles deep on Oman, on the southern tip of Saudi Arabia, which was Atlantis." And I said, 2 miles of seabed and core or underneath the mantle are deposited there from the backwash of this impact. I said, before that time, people on Earth had never seen a cloud because the Earth was in balance. It was a smaller diameter. Gravity was stronger. The spin of the planet was faster, so days were shorter. And the plants and the humans received water from heavy dew that occurred, during the early morning hours every day. This asteroid hit, vaporized a huge portion of the ocean there, which is now the Indian Ocean, a lot bigger now than it was then. But it vaporized all that water, which went up into the stratosphere, and cooled from the outer space being colder, and it condensed into clouds. And I'm sure that the people in Noah's time were laughing at him for 100 years or so, saying, "What are you building a boat for? I mean, it's going to flood, you say?" Now, remember, they had never seen rain except heavy dew condensing right on the ground level. So when the clouds started to form after this impact and boiled up all this, and after, of course, the asteroid punched through the crust of the Earth and released a lot of trapped water in the Moho discontinuity, salt water that was hot. That's in the Hebrew, by the way. It's that accurate about it, that the water was hot coming up from the springs of the deep that were broken up. All that put together, you can think that on the day that the angel shut Noah and his animals and his family into the ark and sealed it, that they were standing around with their jaws dropped saying, "What the heck is this?" Now, they must have known something was up, because the shock wave from an impact that great would have caused earthquakes and ripples all across the planet. It would have been localized. It was everywhere. So they would have had that. Then a few days later, or maybe even hours later, rain started, and it was a condensing of the atmospheric water that was created by the boiling of the ocean by this impact and the heat it generated. It's just, I wish I could sit down with a classroom of people. In fact, I may do that on my Patreon site, going to live things like you're doing, and take questions and explain to them how all this happened and, prove the Bible. I mean, it's absolutely correct. It's a historical document without error, and it's so accurate in Hebrew.
And thank you for that, because that gives me, even though I've heard this before, the more I hear it, the repetition, it gives me a greater understanding of the context, back in that day, in building an ark and saying, "Yeah, okay, you're nuts," but now that gives me a lot more context, and I never tire of hearing that. Wow.
Okay, slide 40. NASA Frontier Development Lab, FDL, their team uses a deep learning or artificial intelligence to monitor the sun's ultraviolet emissions. And if you look at the article, it's measuring the extreme ultraviolet, the higher frequencies of ultraviolet. Now, why are they finding this important? Well, I've been telling you, the high ultraviolet emissions from the sun are big drivers to Earth's climate and to climate for the rest of the planets in the inner 5 orbits, maybe 6. And this is an indicator. They're trying to get a forewarning of when it's going to release some huge flares in CMEs by studying the variations, which are rapid, by the way, that just almost by the minute, of the high frequency ultraviolet spectrum. And you can read that article and see more about it there. And the picture it does enlarge to let you see that. But the fact that NASA has set up a special team to study this tells me, anyway, that we are not wrong in assuming that the main driver to our weather and our weather problems is the sun. And it may also be that they're studying to see when it starts to throw off its outer shell and enlarge a bit, and do what Revelation says about the sun getting hotter 7 times brighter than the day and the normal day, and burning a third of the earth to a crisp. The fact they're doing this does concern me. And in slide 41, over in Finland, I think it is, they are monitoring the neutron count, which is done inside of a mountain, usually in a vat of water deep down under there, where they measure neutrons in the counters. They have plotted the cosmic ray penetration, which occurs for 2 reasons: when sunspots are almost nil, which they are now, and when the Earth's magnetic field is weakening, and it is weakening faster and faster as each day passes. So we're getting more cosmic radiation and more neutron count and more gamma radiation, which is not good for your health. And this is just hard proof of what I'm telling you about. If you click on the picture, you get the thing. And if you click on the text down there, it takes you to the cosmic ray station to show you hourly variations. And we are at a peak, and it's the second highest peak in the 35
since 1964.
Yeah. So and they think it will peak out higher than that. So generally speaking, what we're seeing is an increase in cosmic ray, various frequencies of ultraviolet, extreme ultraviolet, and gamma, and that kind of stuff, getting through our shield, our magnetic shield, which is the upper atmosphere, ionosphere shield is from. It's getting through it, and this ain't good. It's going to hurt us.
Man, that would be a good spot to bookmark, I think, right? Cosmic ray station. Okay.
Yeah, I would for sure.
All right. We have a minute left, Stan. I can't believe it's close. So go ahead.
All right. Well, very quickly, slide 42 is a bit of fun. If you click on it, you will see a black spot on Jupiter that they've recorded, and you think, "Holy cow! How can there be such a big black spot?" The red spot dissolved and it's going away, and now this big black spot. Well, if you scroll down the image underneath that, in the movie 2010 Space Odyssey, this black spot was caused by that monolith, that big rectangular black thing, multiplying into millions of them, and depositing himself on the surface of Jupiter and making a big black spot just like that. And then, of course, it consumed Jupiter and turned it into a second sun. But it was a bit of fun to look at that anyway.
Well, thank you, my friend. And Stan, I want to thank you so much. And all of the stuff happening to you and Holly, taking the time out to come on the show, I really appreciate you. Hopefully you'll be back at your regular day and time next week, Tuesday. If
Tuesday.
Not, okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
All right, my brother. Give my best to Holly and the little ones, and God bless.
Thank you. Lord bless you now. Bye-bye.
Right. Folks, stay tuned. Getting right back.